Hi everyone. In this presentation I try to explain the Ricardian model and how it's explain the trade between different countries. The Ricardian model is based on the idea of there are differences in the labor productivity in producing different goods and different in labor productivity between the country and in special production of special goods. We can say that in general a country has comparative advantage in producing some good, we say X good, if the ratio of labor productivity in producing the good X comparing to labor productivity of producing good Y is more than this ratio in our country. This means we can say that this country, maybe like the home country, is more efficient in producing the good X comparing to good Y, and comparing to this ratio to another country. For example, we can say, we take example of like labor productivity in producing good X might be like we can say computers. For example, if 1 unit of labor can produce 2 units of good X, and the same 1 unit of labor can produce 1 unit of good Y. Therefore, this ratio is equal to 2, and if we compare this ratio to labor productivity ratio to another country, we assume that is labor productivity in producing good X relative to the good Y is more than that ratio in the foreign country. Therefore, the home country has advantage comparative. We can say the home country has comparative advantage in producing the good X. That means the home country can produce good X more efficient compared to good Y, more efficient to another country. This, what does mean the comparative advantage? We say we must focus on the comparative advantage, not absolute and advantage, because sometimes country has absolute advantage in producing some good, but does not have comparative advantage. That's very important point. You must focus on the comparative advantage that is explained trade, not the absolute advantage. For example, maybe a country don't have comparative advantage. Don't have absolute advantage in producing some code, but have comparative advantage in that code. Why? Because we imagine that if we talk about the ratio of the same country, we have 1, but the foreign country is 4 to 3 labor productivity ratio of labor productivity of good X to good Y. We see that the home country, 1 unit of labor of home country can produce 2 units of good X, and 1 unit of labor in the foreign country can produce 4 units. Therefore, the home country does not have absolute advantage, but still have comparative advantage in producing good X, because if we take this ratio is still more than this ratio. Therefore, you bear in your mind, we talk about the comparative advantage, not absolute advantage. Let's explain how the Ricardian model explains trade between countries of the world. We now talk about explain the model, how it's work and how it explains the trade between countries of the world. We talk about the assumption of the model. We assume that we have 2 goods, X and Y, and we assume 1 factor of production, and this very important point, we assume just now 1 factor of production, which is the labor, and assume that the labor can move without any cost between the two industries, the industry of producing the good X and the industry of producing the good Y. The free mobility of labor between the 2 sectors, and there are 1 factor of production, which is the labor. We assume there are 2 countries, home country and foreign country. We assume that the production function is like this, because we assume just 1 factor of production. This the production in the good X, and this the production of function in the good Y industry. We must, this equation is very important, because we can derive from this equation the labor productivity. The labor productivity in producing good X, and the labor productivity in producing good Y. The labor productivity and producing good X, just we defined the quantity of food that produced in good X industry on the labor used in this industry. This will give us this ratio, just this ratio, and this is the labor productivity in good X industry. And we can do this for labor productivity in good Y industry. We find this ratio Q the same middle, Ly is equal to 1A Ly. And also we can derive from this equation how much labor needed in each sector in order to produce some amount of quantity from good X and good Y. As a second point, we must bear in your mind, we have limited amount of labor. Therefore, this limited amount of labor, we have to divide this limited amount of labor between the two industries of good X and good Y. And if we substitute about how much labor needed to produce some amount of quantity in each sector, we have this equation, and this equation is very important in driving the production possibilities for frontier, and we use this graph in explaining how trade between two countries, different countries of the world does happen, and also explain the benefit of trade. Okay. Production possibility frontier, how to graph this, how to plot this graph. First, you have to determine this point, and this point, that's mean on the horizontal axis, that's mean quantity from good Y is 0. Therefore, we use this equation to drive this point. We measure this quantity of Y from good Y is 0. Therefore, we have left just by this one, this equation, and if we derive Qx in this case is equal to L, and this point. And this point does mean the country just producing the good X and nothing from the good Y. And by similar model, we can derive the other extreme point when country producing just producing the good Y and nothing from good X, by letting Qx is equal to 0, and therefore all this will become 0, and therefore we can derive Qy is equal to L divided by this. The production possibility frontier will give us how possible allocation of labor between the two industries, how much can we allocate efficiently labor between good X and good Y. The slope of the production possibility frontier give us the opportunity cost of producing X in terms of Y. Why? Because if we are here, that's Q Y, and we wanted to increase production of the goat eggs. We must sacrifice by decreasing the production from good Y in order to produce more from the good X. Why this happened? Because we have limited amount of labor. If we want to increase production of good X, we must take some labor or some labor from good Y industry, move to good X industry. Therefore, increasing production of good X is have opportunity cost because we lose production in good Y. Therefore, we can drive the slope of the production possibility frontier is maybe equal to the opportunity cost of X in terms of good Y. And because here in this model we assume one factor of production, therefore the production possibility frontier curve is just right line. We see how this will be different when we are introducing another factors, not just the labor. Okay. Now we understand this. The most important question now: how each country allocated labor between producing good X and good Y. That's important. We now know from the production possibility frontier we can each country we can produce good X, we can produce good Y only, we can have many options, any point on the production possibility frontier curve we can choose. This number the question what the optimal point that each country allocate the labor between the two industries. The answer for this question is the prices, or not just the prices. We talk about the relative prices of good X and good Y. That means the most important, because we know what determine the allocation of labor between the two industries, and at the same time determine how much produce we will produce from good X and good Y is the prices of good X to good Y, or relative prices of good X, or the price of good X in terms of good Y. This, of course, of the prices of good X in terms of good Y is more than the opportunity cost of producing good X comparing to good Y. Therefore, it is more profit to produce good X, or in other words, the wages in the good X industry will be higher than the wages in good Y industry. Therefore, because we assume the labor can move without any cost from good X sector to good Y sector. Therefore, economy in this case will specialize in producing just the good X and we here. That means prices more than the labor unit cost or the opportunity cost of producing X. And that means if the slope of prices is more than this slope, in this case like this one, slope prices Bx, By. In this case, the economy will specialize in producing just good X. Okay, what happens if prices, relative prices, is equal to the opportunity cost? The relative prices of good X is equal to the opportunity cost of X, of producing good X in terms of good Y. Therefore, in this case, there are no difference between producing good X or good Y, because no profit and the wages in the two industries is the same. In this case, the slope of prices will coincide with the production possibility frontier, and in this case, any point on the production possibility frontier, the economy can produce. Maybe this determined by preferences or what if X preferences of consumers in the country. If prices, relative prices, or price of good X in terms of good Y is less than the opportunity cost of producing a good X in terms of Y, in this case, producing the good X not worth anything, and the labor will move to good Y industry, because wages in the good Y industry will become higher than the wages in good X, and in this case, economy will be here. That means the slope of prices here will be, the slope of prices will be less than the slope of production possibility frontier, and we say the slope of production possibility frontier is equal to the opportunity cost of producing good X comparing to good Y. And this of prices, this is then the opportunity cost, the economy will be here. We determine now, it's very important question, we determine how any economy allocate resources between his resources, which is now just labor, between different industry like industry good X and good Y, depends on the relative prices of good. This makes sense because when price of good is more than opportunity cost of producing it, therefore it's profit to increase production in this industry, and the reverse is true. Okay. Have we determined how each country determine its allocation of resources, which is the labor between the two industries? Now we try to explain how trade does happen between countries, and if there are difference we say that in the beginning, if there are difference in labor productivity, of a ratio of labor productivity of good X to Y, this ratio is different between the country, or some country have comparative advantage in producing some good comparing to other country. Because we have in this example, we assume that we imagine there are two countries, home country and foreign country. We have assumed that the home country have comparative advantage in producing good X, because the ratio of labor productivity on good X to labor productivity in good Y, this ratio in home country is higher than this ratio in the foreign country, and this ratio of labor productivity, if we have this ratio, is we see that the ratio of labor productivity is opposite to the labor of the opportunity cost, opportunity cost of producing good X comparing to good Y. Therefore, if labor productivity of producing good X comparing to good Y in the home country is more than labor, that ratio in the foreign country, therefore we assume the opportunity cost of producing good X in terms of good Y in the home country is less than the opportunity cost of producing good X in terms of good Y in the foreign country. And because we said that the opportunity cost of good X in terms of good Y is just the slope of the production possibility frontier, therefore, as we assume the slope of production possibility frontier of the home country is less than the slope of production possibility frontier in the foreign country. Or in other words, we assume the opportunity cost of producing the good X in the home country is less than the opportunity cost of producing good Y in the foreign country. That's why it happened, because we assume that the home country has comparative advantage in producing good X comparing to the foreign country. And this before trade. And before trade, the prices at each country should equal to its opportunity cost. Therefore, before trade, because of laborers can move easily from one industry to another, the prices of the relative prices of good X to good Y should equal to opportunity cost of good X in good Y, to good opportunity cost for good X comparing to good Y. Therefore, before trade does happen, slope at each country or relative equal to the relative prices of good X and good Y, and equal to the opportunity cost of good X. And this makes sense because why trade happens, there are differences in prices between countries. There are differences in prices between countries, and because there are differences in opportunity cost of producing each good in each country. And this allow trade to happen. Why? Because like for the home country, it find that it is the good why it's cheaper to import the good why from the foreign country, and the foreign country is find it is cheaper to import good X from the home country, and this allow trade to happen between countries. Because for the difference in opportunity cost of producing the two goods between two countries of the world, and the difference in relative prices between two goods in the two countries. Okay, when this means the home country will specialize. The home country will specialize in producing good X, and the foreign country will specialize in producing good Y. And therefore we find ourselves on another, like imagine another production possibility frontier. If we make straight line between to this point like this. Okay, we say that the home country will specialize in production good X, and foreign country will specialize in production good Y. Okay, and each country, the home country will specialize in production good X, and he will import what he needs from the foreign country. We see that like of country, the home country, we say that he produce this quantity of QX, of good X, and if the home country just want to consume domestically, just consume this amount of good X, just this like consumption from good X, and therefore he will export the rest. Export the rest to the other country. What about the consumption from good Y? Because the home country will export this portion from the good X to the foreign country, therefore the home country will import this quantity from good Y. We see that like now, this is the benefit from trade. We say that the home country now that means they consume more from good X and good Y. That means we stay here in this point. That means this point is beyond. This point is more than. We cannot reach this point before trade, because this is the production possibility frontier. This but limit on production of gold X and Y in the home country before trade. Then after trade, the home country can reach to more efficient point, and this point, that means this is the benefit of trade between two countries, and the Ricardian model is, and the same is true for the foreign country. The trade will have benefit all the country, and because now here in this model we assume just there is one factor of production. Therefore, the benefit of trade here is unambiguous, and because in the two countries, the wage rate will be higher than before trade, and this allows more consumption in the two countries, and no one is worse off. All party is better off, and the effective trade is on income distribution is clear and is good. Why this happened? Because now this model we assume just one factor of production, but we'll see later in other models when we allow for not just one factor of production. There are, in the real world, there are more factors of production like